money was running out, so I did what I had done in the past, went back to acting. Get some money from acting. I thought, let's give directing a bit of a break. I've had a hard slog for a few years. And so I was actually approached an audition to play the villain in The Knowing, opposite Nicolas Cage, as a character called The Stranger, which was playing an alien. And unfortunately I was runner-up. But it's funny in life, because when you are concentrating on any particular subject, if you're aware of it, you can draw those energies towards yourself, I've found. And if you're surrounding yourself with a topic, that topic will come to you. So as a result of wanting to play an alien, I then, at the same time that I was rejected to play that part, I was also offered another part as an alien in a feature by a man called Nicholas Whiteman. Nicholas Whiteman and I had first worked together on Hide and Seek, where he played Dr. Jekyll. It was now time in his creative journey for him to do his first feature, so he asked me to play an alien. So here I was acting again, 1 minute, getting a small part, or hoping I could get a small part in this Nicolas Cage film, but then getting a major part and ending up being on the cover of a movie called Suburban Zero. So it's funny what you do wish for, because sometimes you'll still get it, but it just seems to come in a different form. So I thought, okay, well, we're back to acting for a little while now. 2009, and it's now a decade since Nick Levy and I have worked together, and he approaches me and he says, I've got this brilliant concept based on Neil Strauss's The Game. I want to do a movie, I want to do a mockumentary, and it's called How to Be a Sex Star. A lot of local talent had been attached. A good girlfriend of mine, Christina Collard, who's now moved to the US and working there. We acted together. Daniel Rankin, Carter Doyle, Candice Day, a lot of the usual suspects that had worked on previous films all came together to make this movie. And it was a mockumentary. I think the biggest mistake we did was we used my actual name as the character name. So here's all of a sudden you've got Nathan Hill, the sex star, running around town. The premise is, dating 5 girls at once, trying to nail the hottest girl in the city, and getting further into this movie, going, I think we should have used a character name, because this is going to come back and bite me in the ass, I'm sure of it. But the movie did do fairly well. Was picked up by the PAC screen and ended up premiering at the Australian Film Festival. Now will go down in history as the first film to ever screen at the Australian Film Festival, and following that I was able to go to a Mad Max tribute screening where I got to meet the cast from Mad Max, which was a great thing for me because I'd always been a fan of Mad Max growing up as a child. I think a lot of guys in Australia were big fans and are big fans of Mel Gibson in Mad Max. So that was great to be in Sydney and experience that. Now, having been accepted into the Australian Film Festival was a great opportunity, because it then led me to agency representation as a director. Even though I hadn't directed that film, I was a producer on that film, but it was now getting to a point where I'd done a huge body of work, cross-referencing writing, producing, acting and directing, and I was then picked up by Profile Talent and Profile Creative, represented as a writer and a director in Melbourne, which is also a very hard thing to do. There aren't many literary managers even in this country. So I felt that my work was being recognised, and that I'd gone to that next level, and that the movie was actually screening in cinemas around the country. So at that stage I was very happy with the outcome. There was a lot of flack about the role, and there was a lot of confusion as to whether I was playing myself or whether I was playing a character. But again, at the end of the day, any news is good news, or any press is good press. So as long as people are talking and there's some controversy when you're in the independent scene, I think that's always good, because how else is anyone going to know you exist? That's another tip for student filmmakers or independent filmmakers, that sometimes you might have a picture lock, but it's probably good to stay flexible, because most of the distributors I've talked to, when you've already shot the film that they knew nothing about, they quite often do ask you to shoot extra scenes, so you have to be flexible. Sometimes being a perfectionist or too engrossed in your own art can also prevent you from getting to the next level. So sometimes I do question whether that may have done better if we had shot extra additional scenes, but who will ever know? So now at this stage of the game, my film school actually had recognised the work I'd been doing and asked me to come back and do a preview screening of Tomboys to the class, to the new group of students, and I was rapt that they asked me to come back and do that. So in front of about 40 or 50, maybe 60 students, I did a screening of Tomboys, and we had a live Q&A. And it was at that moment that I actually met an individual who was a student at the time by the name of Stuart Marshall. And Stuart and I clicked, and I saw in him I saw in him a lot of myself, and dubbed him my protege, and kept him in the back of my mind for my next project. Setting myself a new challenge involved acting and directing at the same time. A lot of my favourite actors, from around the world, they've directed themselves in their own films, and I thought, wow, that's a real challenge. How can one do that? Can I possibly pull that off? So I had a choice pet favourite script of mine called Jasper, which is loosely based on an old Macintosh game called Leisure Suit Larry, about a nerdy character that goes to a brothel actually and tries to sleep with the most attractive woman, the most expensive woman, and along that journey has to sleep with different girls and make his way up to the top of this brothel mansion. So my movie wasn't exactly like that, but it was sort of loosely based on this idea that this character would meet or would have a kind of a sleazy ex-girlfriend that was still interested in him, and that he might have been a bit of a player in the day, but now he'd moved on and he was maturing and he was a bit over it, but the girl still liked him, and so he took on this case as a private detective for a prostitute whose son's gone missing, which sort of brings him into the prostitution world. And as he progresses along the journey, the girls get more and more attractive or more sexy, so it was a fun film to do. So we decided we'd try and shoot with a stills camera, and at that time the Canon digital SLR Canon Mark II stills camera. No one had shot a feature with that yet, so I talked to Canon about trying to get a demo model that we could use to shoot a full-length film, which was the first movie to attempt this in the country. So we went about, and it was amazing because all of a sudden you've got this 35mm images straight to card, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. So we shot this in this independent film, Jasper, but it was amazing because it was a real collaboration of different artists that came about in Melbourne to make this film. We had singers and martial artists and comedians, theatrical actors, classical actors, TV actors. Just about all walks of life came onto this movie. We had Sandy Greenwood, who at the time was hosting the Marngrook Footy Show, Sally Ann Arnott, who was Australia's Swimsuit Model of the Year and runner-up Miss Australia, Sarah Howard, who was Viper in the TV show Gladiators, whom I'd also done Muay Thai boxing with and studied with for quite some time prior. Catherine Mack, who's now a regular on Home and Away. Stuart Marshall, who I'd met at the film school, I brought him in to do a supporting role as character of Brody. And on the production side, I had Harrison Murray, who was my assistant director, who'd just won Tropfest that year. So the movie felt like it had some legs. Also with the soundtrack, I had stayed in touch with a band called the Ninja Academy, who I'd first seen played live at Johnny Depp's Viper Room when I was in Los Angeles, and they agreed to score the movie. So that was another exciting thing for me. As well as the Ninja Academy, I had several composers from around Australia contacting me, putting their hands up to score my next feature. And it was at that moment that I became very good friends with a gentleman in Perth by the name of Jamie Murgatroyd. And Jamie and I gelled quite well together, and he's gone on to score quite a lot of my work. But Jasper was the first feature that we collaborated on together.